Again, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to today's webinar about the fundamental question, actually, what is luxury? I'm happy that you are joining us for this short session. Welcome back for some of you who have visited our webinar in April about the outlook of the luxury industry in 2023. For those who are new here, a special welcome. Welcome also to the folks who will attend the program in luxury management in October. Welcome to some former colleagues, which I have noticed on the list of visitors today. Happy to be with you, and I hope I'm able to share some insightful thoughts about the fundamental question, what is luxury? Please give me a second. I will switch to the presentation mode so that I can share my slides with you. I hope you can read them, see them, and well, yes, for this short session, I have prepared a few topics, introduction. Then I would like, as the core of this presentation, present to you the high-end brand matrix, speak a little bit about elements that are surprisingly perhaps not defining the concept, the philosophy of luxury. And at the end of the session, I'm showing you some examples how the high-end brand matrix can be used. And today, with a certain focus, as promised, on the Swiss watch industry. So let's get started. Now, if you see these three brands, Rolex, Patek Philippe, Müller, there may be a reflex, and you say, of course, they're all luxury. Yet, if we compare in detail these three entities, we may find out that one is producing millions of units, whereas the other only a few thousand. We will see differences in price points. So the basic question is, are these all luxury or not? And why is this question important? Because we are asked to steer brands. And if we have three such different entities, all being named luxury, how can we develop products, campaigns, touch points, all of that? So what I believe, given my experience within the luxury industry for the last 25 years, it would be helpful for luxury management to have a more refined concept of high-end and within luxury. So why this webinar? Neither in academic literature nor in the industry toolset we find actually operational definitions. Second, as I have just said, without such semantics, we cannot steer brands. So what's the difference between luxury, prestige, premium? When you sit in your meetings and speak about branding and positioning, what is new luxury, affordable luxury, super, casual, hyper, aspirational luxury, and all of that? And what are their implications for brand management? So again, the high-end brand matrix, which I would like to present to you today, is based on my 25 years of professional experience in the luxury industry and some 60 projects as a consultant, where I have used this tool to help brands to steer their business better. It is not a scientific tool, but maybe a little bit better than this superficial, fuzzy concept of luxury without any clear understanding what it actually could mean. Today's webinar is just a short introduction into the HBM concept, and it gives the example of the Swiss watch industry. Now let's get to the points. What is this? I give you a few seconds to think about it. And maybe some of you know, maybe some don't. The answer is, it is the physical reference of the global kilogram. It lays in a safe in the Paris Institute for Global Measurements. And actually, it is the kilogram. Now, why am I starting my little session with the kilogram? The kilogram, as a matter of fact, is a human-defined convention. And I don't want to go into the details of how a kilogram actually is defined, but let's simply note that human beings have invented the kilogram. Now that is important because the kilogram serves, helps us to organize our life, whether it is in science, in business, in people's daily life. However, and here we will find a connection to our today's topic of luxury and its definition. The kilogram is also an object of relative human perception. So yes, the kilogram is 1,000 grams and can be defined as a cube of 1 liter, a cube centimeter of 1 liter. Yet, depending on our strength, sometimes a kilogram can be considered heavy and sometimes it's light. And here we are entering, as a matter of fact, the sphere of luxury too. The common understanding of luxury is, and here's some former definitions. Karl Marx once said, luxury is the opposite of the naturally necessary. And a person, Mr. Müller, in the 70s, actually wrote his thesis on luxury, and he defined it as something that is going generally beyond the necessary recognized satisfaction of needs, respectively beyond the average standard of living. So something sort of above the plus. However, this creates some problems of fuzziness. And there are actually 6 principal challenges if we take these 2 examples as our understanding of luxury. And I would like to speak briefly about these 6 challenges. Number 1, what is the naturally necessary or the average standard of living? And like the kilogram, although it is precisely defined, the perception may vary according to different incomes, social positions, age, genders, countries. And to give you an example, the perceived value of a pair of Crockett & Jones may be different. If you ask someone New Bond Street in London and ask a man, do you consider a Crockett of Jones luxury? Given his income, he may say, no, it's just a regular pair of shoes. Now, if you ask the same question, let's say in Jakarta, many people likely would say, yes, that is 500 pounds for a pair of shoes. That's luxury, of course. So we see here a certain issue of a relative perspective of what luxury can be. And if we are branders, if we define brands, then it becomes difficult to get an idea about what is the nature of our brand. Number 2, what today is considered an outstanding offering may not be the case in the future. As we know, progress advances and there's always something new. And if we take the example of the flat screen being introduced in 1997, that was very innovative, and the retail price was some $15,000 US. Now, if you buy a flat screen today, sometimes you pay less than $300 US. So that has changed too. Consumer perceptions in general and taste of luxury change over time. So obviously, a guy of the 80s like this today likely is considered vulgar. Furious is not something that is worn to the extent as it used to be. So here we see as well the idea of luxury may change over time. And that's the same with price. Price, as a matter of fact, is only an indirect indicator of values. And we see that in these triangles, these pyramids, or in these mappings, brand mappings. But the price is set in an arbitrarily way. And then, as I have already mentioned, there's a multitude of different prefixes, such as ultra, casual, affordable, that renders the whole story even more complicated. And finally, competition often claims to be luxury without justification. The question is, can any brand be luxury? Now, here's the first example of a watch. It's a very nice Frédéric Constant, retails at $2,000 and is promoted in the setup of old-timers, British lifestyle, what may be considered upper class values. So is this luxury just because it is set into the British heritage landscape or not? So these are the things I would like to discuss with you in the minutes to come, having started with an indication that finding a definition for luxury may be a complicated method, yet it is very important if we want to be professional branders. So strategic high-end brand management needs a definition, its own kilogram, if I may say so, to be steered professionally. We want to rationalize a high-end product and service for our R&D departments to become more measurable. And we want to facilitate internal discussions and decision-makings about brand strategy and implementation if we all share the same vocabulary about, okay, what do we mean by prestige? What do we mean by premium? What do we mean by luxury? Externally, having such a set of precise definitions is important to be able to get precise market research, to position a brand clearer, to educate consumers about true product pyramids, and thus about the logic behind pricing. And fourthly, to fend off opportunistic competitors through benchmarking, to fend those off who proclaim to be luxury, yet they are not. And that leads us, and that's the second talking point of today's session, to the high-end brand matrix, which I would like to present to you in the minutes to come. The high-end brand matrix is a conceptual approach to define a semantical system with luxury as its point of reference. And that is, in a nutshell, the concept. Let me go through it to help you to understand it. So basically, we have three different markets. We have a mass market, we have a high-end market, and we have a pro market. In the mass market, we experience commodities, and we have something which we may call entry brands. And then we have a pro market where professionals such as photography, for instance, use tools. So for pro markets, brands are less important. It's more about the tool. Now let's focus on high end because that's our today's focus. At the end, I would like to suggest to you that in strategic brand management, we distinguish four different types of brand: a prosuming brand, a luxury brand, a prestige brand, and a premium brand. Prosuming means professional consuming, professional consumer. Those are consumers that, well, I could describe as experts, as nerds, as the guys who buy a product for the very purpose, for the very USP, functional USP of a product. Now, if we want to make a decision on who we want to be in brand management, a prosuming brand, a luxury brand, a prestige brand, or a premium brand, there are two focus points. The first focus point is product and services, and the second focus point is communication. For the time being, we disregard distribution and pricing of the marketing mix. So let's focus on product and services. In product development, in a way broadly distinguished, we can opt for two solutions. We can opt for absolute leadership. So we are the only to provide a certain service, a certain product. Or we can proclaim and work for it to be a relative leader, meaning that we are better than many. these are the two basic options, and I will come back to that in a minute. In terms of communication, here again, we have two options. We can, in our communication, present the brand to the expert, which means we focus in our information about the product-related basic and incremental USP. For instance, as we talk about watches, the basic USP is telling time. And the second incremental USP could be that the numerals are relatively large, so you can read them easily. So we would, in our communication, speak mostly about our USPs, about the product itself. Now, again, it depends whether we speak about being the only one, about our USP that is second to none, or whether we speak our USP and we know we are better than many. If, and that's the second option with regard to communication, we speak about identities, about social positioning, about emotions, then we are not talking to the expert, but we are talking to the dreamer. So depending on what we offer and how we communicate, and that is a convention that I would like to propose to you, we can distinguish 4 brands, and you will see lots of examples in the minutes to come. A luxury brand means we are speaking to the dreamer, offering beyond the basic USP, emotions, ideas for who are you, what are your desires, which we would like to respect. If we have a product that is better than many and still speak about emotions, identities, we can call that a prestige brand. If we have world records, which I'm going to speak about on the next chart, then we are a luxury brand. If we have a world record, are the only one product-wise and just speaking about it, then we are a presuming brand, speaking to the experts, speaking to the nerds. And the same for a premium brand that is better than many and is focusing on the product. Absolute leadership means to offer the best being measurable in product and service world records. And that is the crucial thing. Here we are talking about the kilogram in luxury. As world records are measurable, they become operational for product and service development and brand management, which simply means that if you are a brand CEO or you are head of product development, you tell your teams, I want world records. We should produce world records that are second to none, and we know we are the only ones. Being measurable, consumers are able to compare offerings easier. So that's the idea. If with regard to focus on product and services, if we want to become luxury, one condition is that we are indeed offering measurable world records, our kilogram. World records in watchmaking, speaking about our today's example for luxury and prosuming, the oldest company founding year, number of components, hours of production, exclusive features and functions, having been first, like the Omega on the moon, Brugge with its tourbillon. Carats, the weight of diamond set jewelry, exclusive production processes and craftsmanship, longest durability, and. Some examples, the most complicated watch currently, Vacheron Constantin. The most personal watch, Philippe Dufour is producing watches for single customers and he's handing them over to each customer. So if there's a brand that is very, very personal, the most personal, it's likely Philippe Dufour. Or if we speak about the heaviest in terms of carat, here's a Hublot, which I think still today is the heaviest of all watches in terms of jewelry setting. Some essentials about world records. If product and service performances are not measurable, they cannot become objects of world records and therefore luxury. due to the difficulty of inventing and manufacturing world records, the amount of product and or service availability in consequence is limited and hence exclusive. Artificial limitations, however, are not world records, they are just artificial. Innovation is per se world record, being the first pioneers in something. In communications, companies may refer to the world records of the past as brand assets, like Omega with having been the first watch on the moon in 1969. And obviously, world records need to be relevant to impact consumers. Now let's speak about the second focus point, communication. Luxury and prestige brands offer consumers a higher sense of identity, of self-esteem, as being, for instance, traditional, conservative, powerful, rich, intellectual, young, educated, whatever there is as a description of a human being. So in our communication focus, we may or we may not, depending whether we want to become a luxury or a prestige brand, speak about these things. And again, you shall see a few examples in the minutes to come. So once again, we have two focus points to define 4 different types of brands in high-end. One is product, world record, yes, no. Better than many others, yes, no. And in communications, do we just speak about the basic USP, or do we offer something more in our communication effort, which is about telling the customer, you are traditional, you are rich, you are young, whatever is important to her or to him. So examples, you are cultivated. You're buying our watch and we tell you you're conscious, health conscious. You are buying our watch, Roger Federer. In the case of Rolex, you buy a Rolex, you are sort of a little Roger Federer. You're accepted. So you are invited to events and you speak to the supermaster, watch masters personally of the watch industry if you buy a Philippe Dufour. You wear a certain watch of a certain brand and you can consider yourself of being beautiful, rich, an expert, or social. You collect watches and you meet other folks and you have a good time together. So this is the second dimension in creating high-end brands. Now, so I'm coming back to these 3 initial examples of Rolex, Patek Philippe, and Richard Mille. Again, the question is, are they all luxury? Yes or no? Let's try out to find out. Now, if we dive into the details. Some are younger. One brand is younger than the other. Patek Philippe is the oldest. Rolex was founded in 1905. Richard Mille is the youngest and being founded in 1999. In terms of quantities, we need to be loyal to ourselves and say, well, Rolex, honestly, is producing plus a million pieces a year. Patek Philippe, some 50,000, and Richard Mille, some 3,000. So in comparing these things, is Richard Mille more luxury? Is it luxury? Is Rolex truly luxury with more than a million pieces a year? If we look at unique watch functions, there are none, to be honest, for Rolex. There are many complications, what we call complications or special functions in a watch that can be attributed to Patek Philippe. And to be honest, it's a beautiful watch, highly complicated, but there are no special functions for Richard Mille. Now, in communications, some are identity-driven, like Patek Philippe and Rolex. We're going to see that in a minute. And some are more watch-driven, speaking about the features of the watch. We have different entry prices. Rolex, $5,300, Patek Philippe, $23,000, and entry price point for Richard Mille is $60,000. POS, 42, 344. more than 1,500. Own factory, yes, 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 no. Revenues, I thought I had the revenues somewhere. No, I don't. Some 10 billion, and these two are at, no, here they are, 9.7, 1.8, and 1.3 billion US dollars. Now, with regard to world records, all three do have sort of world records. Rolex is the most expensive vintage wristwatch ever sold. As I have explained, Patek has its own exclusive watch functions, is the oldest family-owned watch brand, and the most expensive vintage pocket watch ever sold, while Richemille was the first futuristic mechanical watch design being introduced. So if we try to use the high-end brand matrix, we can discuss, and again, this is not a scientific approach, we can discuss whether A. Lange & Söhne is prosuming, offering world records and on the product side, yet in communication are speaking more about the bits and bytes of the watches, or whether they are luxury. And we have a little tool of analyzing advertising, positioning, the homepage, the events, in asking ourselves, is A. Lange & Söhne really providing a social idea to its customers and offering who they are, yes or no? And the same for all these other brands. So is Rolex a prestige brand? Is it truly offering a world record in watchmaking or not? Is Patek Philippe luxury? Is Richemille? So I'm not saying that this allocation positioning of brands is correct. What I'm trying to offer to you is a tool where you can discuss internally, okay, where are we and where do we want to be according to the convention, the kilogram of the high-end brand matrix. Now, to give you an example in more detail. A luxury watch basically is just a piece of metal consisting of some components, sometimes many components, assembled in a given pattern by human beings, simply to tell time. But more than this, at least some brands offer something on top to the product. In the case of Patek Philippe, it's the notion, it's the offering. You buy a Patek Philippe, you take care about generations, you take care about your children. You are a person that is considering tradition as something important. And to explain to you again a little bit the idea of the high-end brand matrix, if we look into the history of Patek Philippe advertising, it used to be very basic, explaining the product, the functional idea. You can wear it with different dress. It is made of steel. So a lot of talk about the product itself. Nowadays, Patek Philippe hardly speaks about the complications, how the movement works, how individual components are finished. No, the story is you actually never own a Patek Philippe. You're just handing over it to the next generation. You begin your own tradition. So although Patek Philippe still has a lot of world records, the brand has decided, and with a huge success, to focus on the identity, providing its customers an identity, and then in this case, the notion of tradition, generation, taking care for the children. So if, again, we come back to the Summit brand, high-end brand matrix, we can witness through communications, basically, that Patek Philippe moved away from being a prosumer brand a brand for collectors and nerds and specialists, to a lifestyleish consumer identity related brand. So the product has not basically changed at all. The difference was made through communication, and through the leverage of communication, the company got quite successful. So the question is, does the high-end brand matrix really resolve the 6 principal problems of luxury being fuzzy? The definitions, at least to my experience, of the natural necessary or the average standard of living are rendered unimportant due to the absolute notion of world records as the definition's axiom. Second, with the notion of constantly new world records, luxury is defined as a dynamic phenomenon to mirror progress. At the same time, however, former world records achieved by a brand will statically be embedded in its history and can be used again and again, as the example of Breguet or Omega or others tell. The adaptable and dynamic notion of luxury also applies to changing consumer needs. The indirect indicator price is substituted by world records that are directly related to products and services. Luxury brands need to distinguish between what they use as working definitions internally and how they deal with the relatively luxury perception of consumers externally. So the tool is not scientific, but nevertheless helps to different in some way how you can steer your brands operationally. And the notion of world records puts pressure on pseudo-luxury brands to reveals that they're opportunistic offerings. So to put that, to summarize that, there are brands that have the possibility to be luxury. Some brands decide we could be luxury, but we don't want to be luxury. Richard Mille. Could be a luxury brand, but is not a luxury brand, sorry, that is not relevant. Here are brands like Richard Mille who could be luxury, but say we don't want to be, very often the case for presuming brands. Then we have the luxury opportunists that are not luxury, but proclaim to be luxury, often premium and prestige brands. And then we have those who could be luxury and proclaim to be luxury, such as Patek Philippe. Consequences. I believe with a tool like the high-end brand matrix, consumers get a clear orientation. There's pressure on competition as being revealed weak if they proclaim to be luxury without world records. Can be then identified as opportunists. Management acts within the frame to decide which type of high-end brand it wishes to apply its brand to. And note, please, that is very important. There are a trillion of positive examples of prosuming brands, of prestige brands, of premium brands, and luxury brands. And there are failures in all four categories. So you can choose whatever it is, and it may be very, very successful. The point then is that you adapt your marketing mix, your storytelling, and all that according to your idea, whether you're prosuming, luxury, prestige, or premium. It facilitates corporate portfolio management also, and it's a clarification of semantics that are, as I have just explained, help you to define concrete measures in marketing mix and elsewhere. Visions and duties in R&D, frame for content, stories, and tonality in communications, definition of value chain, corporate culture, budgets, and so on. Now, here comes the tough part. The luxury hour. What is luxury, and what are elements that are not defining luxury? And you will be perhaps surprised about the following. This is what we have just discussed. There's an absolute sphere defined by the world record and the consumer status. Price and distribution as having supporting functions for luxury products that are sort of exclusive. And then on the other side, we have the consumers, which are, as we have found out, acting in the relative sphere. They have their individual dreams, assessments, needs, and they may face financial hurdles, emotional hurdles, social hurdles, intellectual hurdles to venture into luxury. So that creates this idea of social selectivity, which is a different bitter pill to swallow. Yes, luxury is social selective, and it is due to the fact that some people cannot afford, or the wife says, no, you cannot buy another watch, or it's too complicated. So the offers absolute exclusiveness being found by the world record, and the social selectivity being relative as being considered only for the rich and famous, and create the famous luxury aura. So the customer sphere, as it is relative, will not help us to define luxury. And thus we are focusing in our internal discussions on the notion of world records to do what we need to do. Luxury is defined by intercompany or industry agreement to steer brands. Working definitions, it's kilogram. Brands decide if they want to venture into luxury. The consumers do not define what luxury is. However, of course, the consumers decide whether they want to purchase luxury or not. Another aspect, high-end loudness. Luxury is luxury, regardless whether you position your brand this way or whether it is more discreet, as, for instance, the Yellowstone Club in the US. So luxury can be offensive, loud, or can be silent. Nevertheless, both tonalities and communications can be luxury. And the same applies for innovation and tradition. Luxury is luxury. It can be based on the past. It can be innovation. There are many examples on both sides. Luxury may or may not relate to either tradition and or innovation. It depends whether we have world records and whether we are ready to provide social identity to the consumers. Now, prefix luxury. Affordable, cheap luxury, per definition, is possible if brands sell the world records under value. Premium and prestige brands claiming to be luxury are these opportunists in branding. Casual luxury, luxury that offers products with world record yet to be consumed casually, thus it is a subcategory of luxury. New luxury, having time, enjoying relationship, only relevant if consumers are ready to pay for a product or a service related to offering time and relationship. For companies, luxury is a business and not a free social service. So if we speak about new luxury, hotels, tour operators, then yes, enjoying relationship and time is important. And it is their business to provide world records and social identity so that they find the customers. At the end, I would like to speak about some general applications about the high-end brand matrix. So we can use it, as we have just seen, on the product level, either in deciding to be either luxury, prosuming, premium, or prestige, or, which is in many cases the thing that happens in the luxury industry, we have a pyramid, and we can then decide where to position our pyramid and how big it is and how wide it is, how large. That is possible too on product level. Now, what we shouldn't do these cases, trying to be a prosuming brand and a luxury brand at the same time. You cannot provide social identity without providing social identity, which would be the aspect of prosuming brands. And the same applies to premium as prestige brands. And obviously, such a case is also not quite smart because that leads to diluted positioning. So let's level number one, product level. Second level is corporate portfolio. And here we see the swatch group. And again, you can argue with me whether Breguet is a prosuming brand or a luxury brand, and then we would discuss the way how they advertise and discuss the world records. But it is a tool, also the high-end brand matrix, to get a structure into the portfolio offerings of groups. And finally, you can also use the high-end brand matrix on level 3, on industry levels. Again, the watch industry, to compare yourself with your peers, and to see where you want to move your business if you belong to a big group, or in relation to your competitors. So that was in a rush the introduction to the high-end brand, with some thoughts on what is luxury. I hope you have enjoyed this short session. Does not solve all problems of the question about what is luxury, but I hope it provides some additional ideas that are helpful for you. Again, I can promise that if you work with it, it gives you some guidance, and it forces your teams to think more in detail about strategic positioning. At the end, however, you are obviously invited to create your own definitions if they work better, if they help you to get your task done. As long as you have a definition, a working definition for your activities in luxury, that is already excellent. So thank you very much for listening, and I'm hoping to be able to answer a few questions.
Well, thank you so much, Frank. This was very insightful, and time went fast. Yeah, thank you, dear viewers, for your questions. I see you have posted some already in the Q&A section. And by the way, it is easier if you use the Q&A section instead of the chat for me to actually read and find them. So Frank, I'll start with the first one. Did LVMH and Instagram kill luxury by making it fast fashion? What's your take on that?
No, well, LVMH is a group of some 60 brands, and some are likely more what I would define as prestige than luxury, because they lack the world record in comparison to their competitors. And even if now a trillion of people would throw stones at me, I believe there is a difference between Hermes and Louis Vuitton, for instance. One I would consider more luxury, and the other less. Now, has LVMH killed luxury? Well, for sure not prestige, and luxury. I think they're beautiful offerings. What I am concerned about is this whole hype about artificial intelligence, about gamification, about NFTs. Those are tools that are giving more, fueling the process of democratization in high end. And here I fear we need to make sure that we are not doing too much, so that this idea of exclusiveness, social selectivity remains alive. But that's a general challenge of the whole industry.
Thank you for that, Frank. We have talked about the watch industry as an example. What are your thoughts on how does it translate to service-based businesses rather than product-led brands?
I believe, and that's the unique thing about the high-end brand, basically you can apply it to any high-end industry, whether it is service-based or product-based. It can be a tour operator, it can be a cruising company like Norwegian, it can be hotels. So it's, how should I say, it's like the BCG matrix. You can use it basically for any company, for any brand. It's universal.
Excellent, thank you. So here's a question, and I think you've answered this partly. Does the matrix also differentiate between the nature of the products, for example, technical, more complicated products like a car versus a luxury handbag that is easier to produce?
Well, it depends on the brand, what the brand wants. The brand can focus as a prosuming or premium brand more on the technical aspects, and that is quite common in hi-fi, in photography. But as we have seen with complicated movements of Patek Philippe does not care to speak about that and focuses on family values. So it is the choice of the brand, actually. And again, either way can be good, can be bad, and depends on how at the end strategy is executed, implemented.
Excellent, thank you. We have reached our time already, but this is an interactive format. We can answer a few more questions, but for those of you who need to leave, we'll send around the link to the slides and also to the recording in probably early next week. Also, make sure to follow Frank or our Institute of Instagram, of course, LinkedIn. I mean, to really stay up to date on his thoughts and insights on industry developments. So here's a more philosophical question, Frank. To what extent has the understanding of luxury changed in the course of the digital age? How do you assess the role of digital marketplaces that are consciously positioning themselves in this segment? For example, Mytheresa or soon Zalando, maybe.
Here again, we have these platforms. We have innovation, and it's up to brands to use these platforms, these tools, the way they want to. Luxury means, in final consequence, that you offer social identity, which quite often means social selectivity. So yes, we can prostitute ourselves and reaching out to everyone, which is then likely nothing that has something to do with luxury. So then we are talking more reaching out to the masses. It depends on the guts, the courage of a brand to say, yes, I'm ready, given my business case, to position myself as a luxury brand. Meaning that I'm telling my customer, you're intelligent, you are beautiful, you are this, you are that, and this is in consequence the price of my offering, and sorry if you cannot afford it. So it depends on what the brand wants. If it more wants to be a premium brand, fair enough, then it's more about volume, and the whole value chain is different, and the communication is different. So Rolex is a good example. To me, it's a wonderful case for prestige brands selling in the millions, yet providing identity. And interestingly, is so far not in NFTs and not in gamification and. So in a way, trying to limit the perception of the brand of not being omnipresent. So it depends again on the brand, what the brand wants to achieve.
Thank you. I know we have some participants from the automotive industry, and here's a general question. What are your thoughts on the current developments in the car industry?
Well, obviously, I'm not the expert. It seems welcome. We have some experts from the international car industry. Obviously, you know about your challenges better than I. The big one is e-mobility. Now, if e-mobility becomes the technology that is easy to introduce on all price levels of the offerings from a simple family car to a sports car, the uniqueness of complicated motors does change. So I think by force, automotive brands need to consider luxury, need to consider prestige, and to move away from the technical aspect towards the emotional aspects, and in a way that that needs courage. And as we live in times of democratization, many brands fear that step. So I fear, from a strategic point of view, that the industry as such is sort to some degree stuck in between. Now there are exemptions like Ferrari. They keep their production at 15,000 units a year. and they are typically Italian. You can still smell the tires and this whole Italian thing. Even they will move to e-mobility, but they make sure that they tell the customers a Ferrari remains a Ferrari, and it will be limited, it will be Italian. So it's more about branding. So the task is less a technical one, but I believe an emotional, a social one, generally speaking.
Thank you, Frank. Perhaps a last question about your framework from the point of view of a luxury brand, a startup without tradition and heritage. As such a startup, will you have to move along the matrix first and establish functional points of parity, or can you directly address emotional self-identity needs when launching, which would be a dream, of course?
You make up your mind. You can become a premium prestige luxury premium brand. It all depends on your setup and obviously your means, whether you have innovations, whether you have world records, but basically, yes. The trade-off always is, if you move into premium prestige and luxury, you have higher marketing expenditures, but your hope is through that investment on the retail price side, you can leverage your business higher than just being in brackets premium or prosuming. So yes, you can pick your choice, but you have to prepare your case accordingly. So yeah, it's possible.
So I think we've covered really very broad perspectives on the luxury industry. Thank you so much for your time, Frank. Do you have any additional remarks?
I hope it was helpful, and if you have questions, feel free to reach out, and I'm looking forward to speaking, communicating with you soon on a perhaps individual basis. So thank you very much again, and have a great day.
Thank you for your time, and have a nice rest of the day or afternoon here in Switzerland. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye all together. Thanks.